Welcome, everybody. Episode 63 of Christian Geeks Rockcast. Today, we do not have a special guest. It's just me and Britt.
Well, Jesus.
Welcome, Britt.
Jesus is here.
Jesus is always with us. Thank the Lord. He is always here.
And Jesus, what do you think about our podcast? What would you say?
I hope he gives it 5 stars.
He'd want us to be humble. 1 star, Jesus, 1 star. Give us grace.
You know what? I assume maybe it's just, the way, we always feel lowly about ourselves and we're unworthy. It's like, I would expect Jesus, who is the perfect lamb, to say, you know what? You got some work to do.
Yeah. You know what?
You got a long way to go.
Do an episode on Carmen and then talk to me. And then.
Oh, wow. I did see Carmen's got a feature film coming out.
Somebody saw that. I was going to wait for the news.
He doesn't.
I mean, he doesn't personally, but yeah, somebody, it's coming. It's in production or close or something.
He's such a polarizing figure in this world of Christian music that we live in.
Hey,
but
I approach Carmen with a combination of nostalgia and humor, and a little awe. I'm a little amazed that he existed. Like, looking back, I'm like, there was this dude, and he did, like, just think about how amazing it was. He went in every sort of style he possibly could. I mean, he didn't really do, metal or anything, but he did like rap, or he did gospel, or he did, he just tried to do a little everything. Whatever worked.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, because I saw him in concert, of course, because
they were free. We all did.
But I saw him in concert. I'm familiar with him. I actually volunteered at one of his shows. It was a dark time.
Did you pass the bucket?
I don't remember what I did. I did something.
Wow, but, so memorable.
I think I got a free ticket or something. But it's funny because
we all got free tickets.
Oh, that's right.
What do you mean you got a free ticket?
Why did I do? I'm just kidding. I felt like it was something I felt led to do it. I'll just say that.
But, I felt led. Guilted. No, led.
Led, guilted, something. But it's like, if anybody here has ever listened to the Babylon Bee podcast, if they're interviewing someone, they always ask them 10 questions. And one of their 10 questions is, have you ever met the Christian rapper Carmen? And they call him a Christian rapper. And I'm like, no. If you're going to bring up a guy that most people don't know, you've got to at least put him in the correct category, which was, I'm not even, just entertainer. He was just an entertainer.
Good. That's good. He was an entertainer.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think his story is compelling, and I would be really interested in that story if I felt like it was going to be sort of very true. Because I mean, I know he had some struggles and he dealt with stuff, and if it's going to be that versus like sort of lifting him up high and almost like a deity, which I think some people might sort of feel that way, but hopefully if it's a good compelling story, kind of like the Russ Taff movie, documentary, and some other ones, that have like Rich Mullins, which I know there's been a little. Rich Mullins and Larry Norman, those 2 documentaries have been a little criticized for maybe.
I love the biopic, the movie that the guy did on Rich Mullins. I love that. I have DVD copies of that. It's not touchy-feely Christianity. I mean, but you can't expect that if you're going to do a movie on Rich Mullins. Rich Mullins was outside the box, man. I mean, he was, but so creative and so talented.
Yeah. I think I recently read, this is the problem with social media. It's like, I come on here on the podcast and I've recently read something where somebody somewhere was talking about, like, I think it was about the Carmen thing. They were saying, hopefully they don't do this like they did Rich Mullins, which was, make him seem not as Christian as, whatever, but whatever. Here's the thing. The people who probably did it were more in touch with who Rich was, probably.
Well, here's the thing. The unfortunate reality for 99% of most Christian leaders with a public face is they're not as Christian as you think they are. That's the reality of most of them. And it's the ones I respect who admit that. Because if you don't admit that, you're hiding something, in my opinion. If you've been around ministry long enough, you know these people aren't perfect either. That's not the point. The point is that's one of the things that makes the Bible believable, is these guys who wrote the Bible were like, we were idiots. We didn't get a thing he said. We messed up all the time. We did stuff, we're trying to destroy whole towns with fire. We were idiots. That is it, but the message is not about us, and so again, you hope that people have a stand up, life, and in general you still can, but that doesn't mean you don't, you're not going to, anyway, the whole professional Christian thing, that's a whole other soapbox, but.
Well, I mean, and you've worked in ministry, and I work at a ministry, and I can tell you, I've been working there for 13 years. I remember when I first got a job out of the secular marketplace and I started working in this ministry as my career, as my vocation. And I was like expecting everyone to be walking around with, clasped hands in the hallways and
in robes and
bless you. And you realize at some point pretty quickly, it's just a bunch of messed up humans together trying to do their best and spread the gospel. And, and everybody has a little bit of mess, and over the years you see a lot of mess, but it's like we're all of the same mindset and we're all kind of have the same goal. So it's, it was refreshing, I think, after a while to realize these people here are all like me. I'm not unworthy to be doing this. Like God has called me out of my little place to be a small part of this bigger thing. So,
well, and here's the thing. It's like in a marriage, like a good marriage is not a marriage that never has a disagreement. That's not a good marriage. That's actually an unhealthy marriage. Every marriage, every ministry team, it's not that you won't have issues, is how do you handle them? That's what makes it healthy. Do you handle them with integrity and vulnerability and grace? And I mean, like all the things that we know it's not whether or not you have issues, it's how do you handle them? And so that's what makes it, that's what I mean about if you're not admitting them, how are you handling them? Right. That's kind of a deeper question to me, because look, man, I know, and so it's, or parents, if you're a good parent, you've probably apologized to your kid at some point. I'm sorry, I did that wrong. It's just healthy. You're not going to be, you have to grow and learn. So anyway, that's my soapbox, but I don't know how he got off on all that. Although, it
was Carmen.
It's Carmen. And unfortunately the champion isn't in any of our lists for this particular episode. We could play it as like we could play it out. We should play the champion, play that out at the end.
Or not. Hey, I've told people, this is no secret, and I probably have said it on this podcast in 63 episodes. Surely I've mentioned this, but back in the radio days when that was like a legit sort of charting song,
it was huge.
It was massive, and I remember I would take that record and I would put it on the turntable, and I would go to the bathroom because it was so long. That was the bathroom song. And you could you set a timer. I know this song is 7.5 minutes or whatever it was. You set a timer, you run to the bathroom. You got to get back though with a minute left so you can get settled and figure out what you're doing next. But it gave you an adequate amount of time because it wasn't like a radio edit, like a 3.5 minute song. So bathroom song, the champion.
Number 1 or number 2?
I'm not side B or side A. I had to go side B, so I would put the song on. That's terrible. All right, but so the topic for this, if you haven't already figured this out, the topic for this particular episode is Easter songs. So I've chosen 5 Easter songs. Britt's chosen 5 Easter songs.
Ish.
Some 5-ish. Yeah, 5-ish.
No, ish. Easter-ish songs.
Easter-ish, yeah, sorry. 5-ish, Easter-ish songs. We kind of had this debate of okay, is it is Good Friday an Easter song? I feel like it's all part of the same canon.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense. Anything sort of related to the crucifixion, the resurrection, that whole experience. So some of the songs are very overtly crucifixion and resurrection related. Some of them are kind of allude to, the fact that, Christ went through this for us. So, but they're all specifically pointed toward that story. So
right.
that's,
and I told Steve when we were kind of texting about it and talking about it off and on over the past kind of month, like I have been surprised that there weren't more resurrection songs. Most of the songs that I found were pointed directly at the death, crucifixion, the Good Friday narrative, most of them. And I just thought that was very interesting. Maybe that's a rock thing and a metal thing. Like that's a darker story. And again, like I don't have anything against stuff about the cross and that whole narrative. I thought, I just found it interesting that among the bands I was kind of looking at, a lot of them were more focused on the death of Jesus. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think in my brain went to rock and metal. It seems to be that theme, with the veil tearing in two and the sky turned black, and all these different, all the associated themes around the crucifixion make for good rock and metal songs. Although you'll find that Britt and I kind of delved into a little more contemporary category.
We did.
Yeah. So we're kind of all over the map, especially Britt. Britt is all over the map on this countdown. So this is going to be good. It'll be good for some people.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll see. And I was just thinking, one of my favorite parts about the Christian narrative, and I think it's only Easter narrative. It's only in Matthew when there's the earthquake and the veil tore and the whole thing when Jesus died. Matthew mentions in like one sentence, and I've taught on this. If he's the only one who mentions it, that the graves opened and saints of old got up and started walking around Jerusalem. And it's just a sentence. And it doesn't say what happened to these people. It doesn't say like who they were. It just, that was one of the things that happened when Jesus died. Anyway, I want a metal song about that. Maybe it exists and I don't know. So if somebody's listening to this and like, oh yeah, Messiah Prophet did that in 93 on their whatever album that I didn't listen to or something. But so if you know a song like that, but that seems like a great metal song right there.
For real.
Anyway.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. I'm gonna put that on my list of metal songs to write.
All right, let's get into some news. You want to get us some news?
Yeah, we can do news.
All right.
All right. In the news, we have a couple things. Like I told Britt, I felt like I would have more news for this episode because we did 2 interviews done. We've done 2 interviews in a row.
We're in Georgia. You can talk. Right,
we did 2 interviews in a row. But when we do interviews, we just jump right in. We don't do news. We don't do any of the pleasantries. Some of you probably are super excited about that. But we haven't done news in a couple of episodes, but I don't have much. So what I was going to say, and if you follow us on social media, you probably seen this a good bit. We have a YouTube channel, and so the main reason we put up the YouTube channel, we've talked about this in the past, and we're going to continue to put content on there. It's a little more challenging, as you can imagine, to do that. But there seems to be an audience there, which is good. I mean, we put up 3 episodes, the 2 interviews we've done, which is Rex Carroll and Dave Roberts from White Cross and Randy Rose. And then we also put up the little special episode I did on Michael Knott for his passing. So yeah, we put those things up there. We've gotten a lot of views. Michael Knott episode is up to almost 400 views, which is pretty awesome. And Randy Rose interviews up to about 125, 130. So, and we got 25 subscribers. So we're just looking to add more. If you're on YouTube, yeah, go subscribe. I won't guarantee that every episode will be on there. There's a little bit of legal hoops to jump through related to music and that sort of thing. I don't think I'm concerned about getting our monetization taken away, because we're not at that level to where monetization is really even a thought. But so yeah, we'll just play it by ear, but just keep an eye on it, as you know. And I may start putting some more like some of the reels and stuff that I've done where it's on just little videos of check-ins and going through my CDs and CDs and records and tapes and stuff like that. If you're on social media, if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, check it out. Just look for Christian Geeks Rockcast. We're out there. Look for all our branding and whatnot. The other thing I was going to bring up was, and when I put it on the list, I was going to be like, hey, time is running out. Because we were going to record this earlier in the week, but things have gotten in the way. But the Mad at the World Kickstarter, I just looked at it and it's funded.
Yay! So, good job.
So
good deal.
Good job, Randy and Roger. You got it funded. So we're going to get a rock album from them called Love and Despair. If you haven't listened to our previous episode where we talked to Randy, Randy Rose, that was a lot of fun. Just a fantastic guy.
Yeah,
just
really
cool.
Nice
guys.
Super cool.
So so go check that out. And I think that's all I've got. Do you have anything?
Oh, the only thing I was going to talk about a little bit is that 2 albums have come out in the last few weeks. So the White Cross album.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's self-titled, isn't it? Is it self-titled? No, is it Fear No Evil? I think it's called Fear No Evil, maybe. Anyway, it is out, and overall, it is definitely worth a listen and checking out or purchasing. I really dig. I dig the dude's voice. Rex is just flying all over the fretboard on this thing. And man, you know, if you're jonesing for rock of that era, you know, mid to late 80s, early 90s, really mid to late 80s, it's right in that wheelhouse. The slower songs fall flat to me. They don't really. I'm not saying it's like a Your Mind situation, but it's definitely like they don't really seem to go anywhere. They definitely have a good handle on that. Just straight. The song "Fear No Evil" is phenomenal, man. It was probably my favorite song on there, and it's just got some really interesting moments on it. And so, you know, I highly recommend it as far as, you know, just if you want to rock and listen to some blistering solos. And I like the dude's voice. You know, the fact that he can. Yeah. One of the things that I kind of liked Scott Wenzel's voice, but he kind of had the same thing as, you know, Piercy from Rat, is that he didn't really have a scream. He didn't really have that high, like that other higher range that I used to like back in the days. But this guy does, the new guy with White Cross and Dave. And anyway, he's a cool guy if you want to listen to that episode. And the Flood album came out, and so I've been listening to that this week. And my two main things to say about the Flood album, which is essentially Gary and Guy from Tourniquet, and they're putting a band back together. But number one, I think Guy's voice sounds better than it ever has. And I don't know how that's possible. I mean, I liked his voice back in the day, but just to give you a reason why I say this is back in the day with Tourniquet, he had the lower thing, and then he would do like this high, like Gonzo thing, and he didn't really have much in between. Like he would just kind of skip this whole range, but where he wouldn't do much in between. And a lot of the newer stuff that's where he is. He's in this in between, that range, and he's either figured it out, or his voice is developed, or I don't know. But I mean, he's got to be at least my age, if not older. So anyway, so kudos to him. The musicianship on the new album, the new Flood album, is great. there's a couple drum parts where I'm like, what, who is that? Like that, who is doing that? But I would say the songwriting is stronger on the first album. So that's just that's kind of my take on it. I think the songwriting in general was stronger on that first Flood album. I don't know if it's just a timing issue. You know, it's kind of that thing. Like Gary Lanier had, I don't know, who knows how long, 5-10 years to put that first one together of just material that he'd been working on. Whereas this one was a year or two, maybe. I don't know. So, but you know, like I said, it's definitely worth checking out. I've been listening to that one and White Cross, and yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. That's I've listened to both of them, but not like intently listening, and not really all the way through either. Just kind of popping on a few songs and checking it out, and they both seem pretty solid. I mean, you can go back and listen to the with the White Cross stuff, and go back if you haven't listened to our episode. Just to kind of recap, we brought up Your Mind, which I was very disappointed. This is the first time I've been able to talk about it on the podcast.
That's true.
But I was disappointed with Rex's answer because I felt like he was towing the line a little bit with not saying probably what he felt deep inside. And I got some feedback from other people that they also agree that he was maybe not telling he wasn't lying. He just wasn't kind of.
And my point was, if you're gonna err on the side of kindness, maybe, you know, like I think maybe he was, you know, like if you're gonna kind of wade into it a little bit, like what does it hurt him to say those things now, right? I mean, like it's just
and I respect. I mean, if you paid much attention to White Cross over the last couple of years, you know, the Rex and Scott story is out there. You know, if you want to, there's other podcasts that interviewed Rex and Scott a couple of years ago.
Joel Walker has a good interview with Scott, right?
Yeah, Joel did some good stuff. And I would say his Scott Wenzel episode is probably his most listened to episode ever. Because I know it's like
it might be.
It blew up and then it went away and then it blew up again, I think earlier this year. But regardless, I thought that the interview was really good, and I feel like Rex is really taking the high road on a lot of things now, which, you know, some people may argue with that, but at least as far as our interview with him, he was all very kind and talked about the history of the band in a very high road way. So I appreciated that. Yeah, and then Randy was Randy with Mad at the World. If you like Mad at the World, if you like their stuff, if you like, they're kind of the eras of their band where they talked about the techno and the rock and the power pop or whatever they wanted to call that third era. It's really interesting to hear kind of how they got started and all that stuff. And to find out, I was telling Jill about this, where it's like it's odd to be talking to someone in a band that I listened to back in the day that is basically my age. Cause I think Randy's just a few months older than me.
Right. Yeah. I felt the same way. I was like, but I've been feeling that way more recently because I hear about some of these guys' ages, and I'm like, man, at the time I thought they were older than me, you know, but they really weren't that much older than me. They were maybe a couple of years older than me at 1986, you know.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where, because I knew he was super young, and I knew Crystal Lewis was super young too, because you mentioned her too, since the young frontline artists. But nonetheless, I digress. We have some Easter songs to talk about.
We do have some Easter songs to talk about.
And I don't have any. Cover art. There is no cover art to talk about. So I remembered it, but there's nothing to talk about.
I mean, we could, but we'd have to do cover arts for 10 songs. Yeah, no.
And I have not looked at them all.
No, me neither.
I could kind of remember them, but not really. So, what was your criteria, would you say, on this, Britt, for choosing songs?
Yeah, for me, it was generally, did it have some part of the narrative of Easter? Did it have some part of that narrative, or was it written specifically to point back to that narrative, to celebrate that? And so I looked for songs that were about the death, the resurrection, you know, the night. You know, there's songs about the night before and the betrayal and all. There's songs about all that sort of stuff. So that's I was just mainly looking for that, and I was just trying to stick within the rock metal alternative. Although you found some good alternative ones. I couldn't really find you found some good ones. I wasn't as into some of those bands that you kind of found. So, yeah, so that was it. And there was one of my favorites that I felt it was close enough. It was a little outside of our normal range of years. And I kind of asked Steve, I was like, is it okay if I add this one? He's like, hey man, we make the rules. But, it's a little earlier, a little more late 70s than the 80 kind of benchmark that we have. But yeah, those are mine. What about you?
Yeah, I tried to stick with songs. Well, I mean, they were all, like I mentioned earlier, they're all songs that are either about the crucifixion, the resurrection, or about pointing toward that event. I mean, and theoretically, like Easter songs, and this narrative has pretty much everything to do with Christianity. So, I mean, one could argue that most every song that points to Jesus is pointing to Easter, but
there you go.
we didn't go down that road. It had to be pretty specifically pointing to, the suffering or the death or the resurrection, that kind of thing. And I kind of, it's like Britt initially texted me and said, like, I'm having trouble, like, just finding songs about Easter specifically. And I kind of started looking, and Christmas songs were a very specific genre. So it's easy to find. Like, you've got Easter or you got Christmas compilations. You've got, there's Easter. I mean, there's Christmas song. There's Christmas songs. There's not really Easter songs. I mean, there are, which you'll see, but it's not like you go out and buy, like, okay, I don't have a stack of my Easter CDs that I pull out every year.
Right.
I do have a stack of Christmas CDs. So it's a little more challenging to go in and find. So I had to do a little digging, do a little research just to figure out, like, because I can't just, like, specifically, I could think of a couple, but most of them I had to kind of do a little digging, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. And so that's kind of how I put my list together.
Yeah. Although I will say, unlike, I think there are more songs about the death, mainly, like we said before, mainly the death narrative, the cross narrative, the suffering narrative within Christian rock than Christmas songs, apart from special Christmas albums, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like,
yeah.
I mean, I can't, for when we were trying to do Christmas episodes, it was like, all right, we can do Bruce Coburn, or we can do this special CD that somebody did where they had these rock art, Christian rock artists on it. So I think there are more, these Christian rock guys usually wouldn't do like a special Christmas song on one of their albums. I mean, but they would do, like I said, I think it's more a thematic thing. It's a darker, and it's supposed to be a dark story. The cross is, it's joyful to us because of the work that was done. But, the Romans didn't develop the crucifixion to be a happy thing. It was meant to cause the most pain for the most extended amount of time and cause the most humiliation as humanly possible. And so it's a dark thing, and but it's part of the story. And so yeah. Anyway, so I think you just kind of thematically, like we said before, works within some of the genres, musical genres that we kind of do here on the podcast. So
yeah. So I know that stylistically, my 5 songs are kind of all over the map. So I didn't like go, these are all metal songs. These are all rock songs. These are kind of, but they're songs that are good.
Yeah. All right. You want to do you first or me first?
Let's do me first.
Okay. All right.
Cause I like your ending song.
Okay.
Okay, the first song I've got on my list is The Killing by the Violet Burning, which is a very dramatic song. It's a song that's very descriptive about the sacrifice that Christ made. I mean, it talks about the nails, it talks about the blood, it talks about the crown of thorns, and how, the soldiers were beating him and stabbing him and that sort of stuff. So it's emotionally raw. So this is one song that I always think about when I think about the crucifixion.
All right, you ready?
Yep. This starts a little slow. Or a little quiet, I should say.
Can you feel the pain he feels as the nails go through his hands, driving them in deeper, bloody red hands? A crown of thorns on his head come down from there, they cry. As you saved others, can't you save yourself? Blindfolded, the soldiers demand prophecy. Who is hitting you now? Who is hitting now? Why don't you tell us? I thought you were the Son of God. Who is hitting now? Take him away. Oh, they're killing my Lord. They're killing my Lord. Like the lamb, like the lamb who was slaughtered, so he never spoke a word. Oh, you're killing my Lord.
Powerful.
I agree. I mean, it's a cool song, and I do remember it from that era because this is off one of the first couple albums, right?
First album.
First album. Yeah. Yeah, no, I like it. It's got a really cool bridge section in there too. That I mean, it gets intense, and yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, it's like this. The building of the song reminds me a little of, like, I always think about lightning crashes from Live. You know, that's one of the ultimate building from beginning to end song, and it gets more intense as the song goes on. I mean, but this one is literally just like, it's like someone observing what's going on using the biblical account of all the suffering that he went through, and you know. And it doesn't talk. It's obviously about the crucifixion. They're killing my Lord. You know, like a lamb in the slaughter is sheared. He never spoke a word, and just talks about, you know, the pain that he felt with the nails going through his hands, and then being mocked by the soldiers, and just all that stuff. It's an emotional song. But I've always loved it. Always loved it.
Yeah, no, I dig it, and I really like if people couldn't hear it, maybe. It's not really, it's like a cowbell. It's like a clink of the nails,
like an anvil or something,
like a hammer on a nail, as part of the percussive element to the song. And there's an element of the like doubt in it, you know, of doubting. Like, well, why didn't you tell me this was going to happen? Well, he kind of did, but like they did have that experience, right? It was surprising to them, even though he did tell them, "Hey, this is going to happen." It was surprising to them. So yeah, so cool song. All right, my first one is not surprising. This one is "Crucify" by Bloodgood, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because you can go back and listen to our episode that we did on Detonation, which was the main one that we've done on, the only one that we've done on the band Bloodgood, and we talked about a lot on there. But I love the theater of this. I love the perspective of this. I love the structure of it. I just think it's like a musical in metal form. And of course, they did perform it in the live albums that they did and the videos and the whole thing. So you know, without further ado, here it is. I mean, the cool thing to me as a songwriter, what's really cool is it's got a structure to it, but it's very free flowing, like he's having a conversation. It's very conversational, even though he's screaming and singing, and it's really just kind of a cool thing. But anyway, it's always one of my favorites. And when we were talking about it, I was like, well, we got to do Crucify at least. And I know there's also the Messiah and other, and really there was another one that I considered too, is that I really love by Bloodgood called Awake. That was really good song too. So anyway, I'll dig it.
Yeah. I don't know. You can't go wrong with Bloodgood when it comes to this sort of melodramatic, acting out the Savior's story. It's just, they're so good at that stuff. And, it's interesting because my next song is again, a telling of that account of the crucifixion. So we're like, really, like these songs are all telling the same story from very different,
right,
stylistic perspectives and maybe like points of view. But my next song is going back a few years from where we've been, not maybe as far as Britt's going to eventually go, but so mine is It Is Finished by Petra from way back in the day. Way
back. Any setup? You want to just go ahead and do
it? It's the setup is this is Greg X. Vol's
right.
era Petra,
right?
And it's telling the same story of the last two songs, the crucifixion story. Maybe, just play it.
All right,
why not?
Let's do it.
In the heat of the early morning, on a hill they call the skull, the roaring of the angry mob had settled to a lull. All eyes were cast upon the man whose hands and feet were bound. They saw him cry in anguish when they heard the hammer pound. They saw the bloody woven thorns with which his head was crowned. They watched the bloody cross of wood be dropped into the ground. The soldiers gambled for his clothes. They watched him win and lose. They saw the sign above his head that said, King of the Jews. It is finished. And the sky grew black as the night. It is finished. And the people scattered in fright. The work had been done. Redemption had been won. The war was over without a fight. It is finished.
Yeah,
What
that's
a great song.
But it's from the album. Why am I blanking? I'm sitting
Not
here
of
looking
this
at
world,
the cover.
right? Isn't it Not of this world?
No,
No.
I think it's not of this world. It's from I'm looking at the cover right now. It's the electronic one. I'm just anyway, it's from an album by Petra.
More power to
from,
you, or I'm trying to think. Come on, man.
Cut this out. Just don't play this because people think I'm very smart. But it's the Simmons drums era.
Yes.
Of Petra, but Beat the System. Beat the System.
Beat the system. I want to do cover that song one day. By the way, I told Steve I want to do a really rockin' cover of Beat the System. I think that's still appropriate in our life today.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing: Beat the System. I do really love that album. Like I saw there's a Petra fan account that's doing like a March Madness of Petra albums, and Beat the System was beating out some albums that it shouldn't be beating out, but
right, yeah.
It's beating the system, as they say. But I do love that album because that's like really early on when I first started getting into Petra. It wasn't like the earliest album I had, obviously, but that album fit in that time frame. And
absolutely.
Simmons drums were the coolest thing ever. You could just pack the entire drum kit in one container. But it's like that album or that song is just, I've always thought it was incredible, regardless of regardless of how dated it may sound or whatever. And Greg Volz's voice is just ridiculous.
Well, so number one, yes, the song is incredible. And for Greg X Volz, he was one of those guys that I think he could do anything he wanted with his voice. Like, I literally think if he was like, oh, I can hit that, he would. I mean, it's just, I can hit that note and sound amazing doing it. And I'm not saying it was effortless for him, but I don't know if you've seen any videos of him within the past 5 or 10 years. He's still singing like he's like he did when he was 30. So he just an amazing voice. And from all accounts that I've heard, just a great person and believer. But then also the song, again, I've talked about this on the podcast before. You get a little older and you're kind of understand a little bit more complexity about musicianship. And as much as it might not have been the style I loved as much at the time, I still liked it. I did like it at the time. But there's a lot going on between the keyboards and the guitar and the bass and the drums, and they all have their space, which means there was thought and planning, and that was something that was very cool about the 80s. And I know I've talked about it before, but so all of that stuff put together, it makes me still really enjoy that album. And I actually like, I don't know if I like it more, but I do like hearing John Schlitt sing that song too. I think he does a really good job with that song.
I'll tell you what's interesting. A couple of nights ago, one of those late night rabbit holes you go down and then you realize it's like 12:30 and I should be sleeping. I started watching a concert from '86 in Norway from Petra right after John Schlitt joined the band. So he was singing all Greg Volz songs pretty much. And that's when listening, and John Schlitt's voice is ridiculously good. It's
ridiculous, yeah.
But and he did these songs justice, but it's like when he was singing, I would realize how good of a singer Greg Volz was.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
And you don't think about it until and now could Greg Volz sing the John Schlitt stuff? I don't know. But it just sort of reiterated the fact that Greg Volz was probably better than he gets credit for when it comes to.
I totally agree. All right, so my next one is I kind of stayed mostly within the metal genre. I think, because we talked about we didn't want to do more than one of a band. So he came, he saw, he conquered was one of my favorites. But it is finished. We went with that one with Steve's. But for me, I was looking at a couple of these songs from Sacred Warrior. I almost did He Died, which is a cool song, but I think I like this one better. This is Remember Me. This was off of Obsessions. This is Sacred Warrior. And I actually wrote a song before this album came out called As I Lay Dying, and it was a very similar song of speaking from the perspective of the thief on the cross. And I love songs like this. I mean, if you've been listening, I really do like songs that kind of take a different perspective and it's because it's a very storytelling sort of thing. Like, what was Pilate's perspective on this event, and just kind of telling it from that. So I love that sort of stuff. So this song kind of does that, which is why I picked it. And it's a great song.
Just where I sit, and where will I be?
Yeah, I just the different elements of the song are just they flow together, but they're dynamic and different and distinct from each other. So at the verse, the pre-chorus, the chorus, and just different cadences, but it all flows. And I was watching one of the because Ray Parra, who's been on our podcast, he also has his own podcast now called "Is It Wrong" or something. And one of his he had on the Sacred Warrior guys, because they're technically back together now, I guess. So he's even had the singer who replaced him on one album on one of his, which I thought was. He was like, yeah, I love this guy. This guy's great, So I thought that was really cool. But he seems like a really great guy. Ray does. But they said something I was watching the YouTube or listening to it that I thought was a good point. And I have thought for Sacred Warrior, the guitar player for Sacred Warrior was not an outstanding soloist. In other words, like if you put his solos up against Rex Carroll, like it would be obvious who was a better guitar player. Okay. But his rhythm tracks are incredibly difficult to play. Like if you go back and listen to what we just listened to, like it's kind of a slower song, but he's doing some amazing stuff just on the rhythm side of it. So anyway, I just think it's a great song and it's cool.
I agree. Classic Sacred Warrior. It's a little bit more, it's not sort of your standard, because the first three songs that we played have been very, this is the story of the crucifixion. It kind of takes a different angle. And when you said Pilate, it reminded me that one song this is what always happens. If you do a Christmas episode, if you do any kind of thematic episode, you realize there's obvious omissions whenever you're going through it or later on, because people will comment on this episode or send us messages and go like, what's your deal? And I'm like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I plead the fifth. But the one I left off that should be on here somewhere is Pilot by Undercover.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which is a really good sort of
interesting
song from that perspective. So
yeah.
I apologize.
It's kind of like the champion from Carmen. We should have included that one. All right. So what's your next one?
Okay. This is the curveball. This is my curveball. And some of you will go like, you said you did that one and not Pilot by Undercover. But yes, I did that. I went, okay. So I'll just preface this by saying, I believe there was like 2 or 3 albums by Michael W. Smith in the 80s that stand up as some of the best sort of pop rock albums of that era. And I will fight anyone who disagrees with me. I'm just kidding. No, but I thought, do I love the stuff Michael W. Smith has put out really since the 90s? Not really. It's not my cup of tea. But like there were a couple of albums in there, the Big Picture and Eye to Eye, and maybe a little bit of Go West, Young Man. Some of that is just some really good stuff. But I've always enjoyed, this was probably one of his biggest songs from back in that era, that talks about, what Christ's mission on earth was, and nobody really knew about it. But it was called Secret Ambition from Eye to Eye.
All right.
But that song is... I don't know. It's just it's a great pop song about
it is, and it's
really important.
Got some rock elements to it. I mean, it's got some, and he and both Amy Grant sort of tried to tip their toe into some rock elements there, mid to the mid 80s era. So no, I dig that one. That's a good song.
Well, hey, Tony Palacios from Guardian is like his touring guitar player. So.
Yeah. I don't know if he played on that particular album, but yes.
Pretty sure he did. But yeah, if we're going to go down studio musicians, he probably had some pretty killer musicians on this album.
Sure.
Like I would put money on the fact that the group Giant had something to do with this. Like Dan Huff and
you might be right. That's a good call.
But yeah, so I don't know. I dig this song. I dig the concept of it, that he was doing all this, but nobody really knew that his life's work would be to sacrifice himself for our sins. So it's just, it's powerful.
Good stuff. All right, so for my next one, this isn't really a curveball, but like I said, I mostly I stayed within the sort of metal arena, and I was kind of going through some different songs. There were some heavier songs that I wanted to do, but I just felt like this one more hit the theme, and really I had a lot of nostalgia. But for me, when Vengeance Rising came out, it was news. I mean, Vengeance Rising, Deliverance came out. Like, people are like, why is Cookie Monster putting out an album? No, they just didn't know. Like, it was, I mean, that style of music was already underground. And the fact that there were Christians doing it, especially as some styles of music that were more associated with, demonism and Satanism and, that sort of imagery. So anyway, so this is Human Sacrifice by Vengeance Rising.
Just a little different than Michael W. Smith.
That's pretty much the song right there. That's the song. But yeah. So one of the things I liked about Vengeance, even at the time, is they weren't a Metallica ripoff. You could argue with Deliverance's music was very similar to Metallica. And of course he had a different voice, which made it unique. But but with these guys, they really kind of developed their own style within that genre. And so I always respected those first two albums. I think are great. They're great listens. And of course it might be too heavy for some people, but I love those. I love those albums. As much as I don't really care for his voice, he still made it fun. He still made what he was doing fun and enjoyable. So yeah, obviously the point of the song is pretty simple. That Jesus was a human sacrifice, and just if you read through the lyrics, it's basically talking about. There's a couple songs like that on this album, and that I actually looked at. There's 2 or 3 albums that I looked at. I mean, 2 or 3 songs on those first 2 albums I looked at, but this one came to the forefront.
Yeah, Vengeance was one of those bands I never really could get into because of, I'm a more melodic guy. Like, I loved the heavy music. That's why I like Deliverance. I like Deliverance a lot. I liked Sacred Warrior. I like some of those bands, but it was just the growling. I just couldn't really, it was hard to not be a part of that era and not recognize the impact that Vengeance had on not only on the Christian world, the Christian marketplace, but they were huge, like all over the metal scene.
Yeah,
like they were massive.
And let me just say, I agree, because I'm the same way. Vengeance is one of the few bands that I listen to fairly. I mean, I listen to them, and that had that sort of vocal sound. But when Die Happy came out with that new singer, and it was basically Vengeance, it was basically Vengeance music with a soaring, screaming singer. It was like, I was in heaven. I was like, this is the best thing. That first Die Happy album is so good. So anyway, that's Human Sacrifice. All right, what's your next one?
My next one, I'm digging. I'm going to Europe for this one. I'm going to reach out, and this is a band that. It's a European band that they don't get talked about a lot, but they had some really, really great albums back in the day. Leviticus and From Setting Fire to the Earth. It's the song Suffering Servant, which is kind of another one of those that's not really overtly talking about the crucifixion or talking about, the resurrection. It's talking about like he suffered, he was wounded and beaten, he was chastised, he was lashed, so we were healed, and basically just sort of magnifying the fact that he was a servant for us. So the suffering servant.
There you go. So good. That's so good. I need to listen to more Leviticus.
I know. It's just like they've got that real classic, like 80s metal sound. I mean, the vocals are really like those guys. A couple of those guys went on to form Jet Circus. Like that.
That's right. I forgot about. They had like one album. Did they have more than one album?
I think they came out with another one, but their first one was the big one.
The first one was pretty cool when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw them at Cornerstone, which was crazy. It was crazy. It was a very different album.
Oh yeah.
Than Leviticus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do love some old Leviticus. Like this is a great album. Knights of Heaven is just a ridiculously good album. That was produced by John and Dino Elefante and just sounds fantastic. But anyway, Suffering Servant. Yeah. It's, again, I mentioned it earlier, it sort of talks about how, he was just sort of this humble man that nobody really knew that he was going to become that for us. So,
yeah. So I'm going to get a little theologically geeky here, but
let's go.
So one of the things that Jesus was coming up against when he appeared was there were several different prophecies that different sects of Judaism believed different things about. For instance, there was the prophet to come by Moses, right? Moses said there's going to become another prophet like me who's going to do another covenant, yada, yada, yada. There's the suffering servant that was going to die and raise again. And there was the Messiah. So there were technically three different figures that a lot of Jews thought were three different people, but they weren't. They were all one dude. And so he was coming up against that those misunderstandings that he was all three. Like the Messiah was going to have victory and set up a kingdom. You see what I mean? Like they had these different ideas about these three different figures. And anyway, and not that no one thought that they could be the same person. It was just there was a lot of debate among Jews already, as you can see with the Pharisees and Sadducees about interpretations on different things. So anyway, so the suffering servant, it just always makes me think about that, is that even Jesus' own disciples had problems with, you're the Messiah and you're the suffering servant. I mean, that's essentially why they were, like, their brains hurt. They were like, wait, no, you can't die. Like, that's not what's supposed to happen. So, and for me, what that makes me do is be humble. That, let's maybe be humble enough to realize when he shows up again, we may not have it all figured out. We may not have it all lined up the way it's actually going to happen. So that's For me,
Yeah.
at least. For me, at least. I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about it at all. It's just this past Christmas, I told somebody, I said, not one person had it right about how it was going to look when Jesus showed up. They had hundreds of years to think about this and prophecies. Not one person. I mean, even the good-hearted ones didn't have a clue exactly how it was going to happen. So it just humbles me. I'm like, maybe I should hold some of these things loosely about what's going to happen in the end, and just let him do what he's going to do. Watch for the signs and let him be who he is. All right. I'm sorry. I went off on a tangent there. All right. My next one is More Than a Man by Stryper. It's one of my favorite songs. It's up there, probably top 2 or 3 of my favorite Stryper songs. And it's one of the few that kind of talks more about the narrative of Jesus that Stryper has. A lot of Stryper songs, the narratives in Stryper songs are, I was lonely and he saved me, or I needed love and he loved me, or she was all alone and she needed love and God loved her. And, you see, I mean, like
Love.
and the theology of Stryper it's gotten better, and not as if it was ever bad. It was fairly simple in a lot of ways. Not wrong, just it was always fairly like, he's God, serve him, surrender, whatever, and they kind of have different ways of saying some of that. So, but this one had a little bit more depth to me of the story and why he is who he is. So, yeah, so that's why I chose this. All right, here we go.
Great.
Go ahead. Oh, you say go ahead?
That's great.
Okay. It's just so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, it's a great song. I mean, it's like the music is good. The lyrics are good. Yeah. It's good. That's good. My take on it.
God, I will follow you because you died for me. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? So
straight ahead.
Let's
not mince words.
And there's something to be said for that, right? It's just, even Paul says in, I think 2 Corinthians, don't let anybody take you away from the simplicity is in Christ. It's just pretty simple. He died, he rose, he loves you. All right, let's do it. It's just, don't try to overcomplicate this thing. Anyway.
Well, and my next song is a little more complex than
okay. All right, there you go.
More Than a Man.
Go for it.
Yeah, my next song. What?
Go for it.
I will go for it now. Is The Twist by the Swirling Eddies, which the Swirling Eddies were kind of more known for being a little weird.
Artsy?
Like this song. Artsy. Like this song appears on an album that also has a song called I had a bad experience with the CIA, and now I'm going to show you my feminine side.
Wow.
So, I mean,
There
it's
you
the
go.
Swirling Eddies. It's Terry Taylor.
There you go.
He's crazy. He's a crazy man. But this is just if you're into Daniel Amos, Swirling Eddies, and like then you know this song very well. But it's just like the song is called The Twist, and yeah, you can just play it. We can talk about it.
There's nothing up my sleeve. I've got no magic tricks to save the day. Put down the gun. You're not helping anyone, and I'm not about to run or back away. Don't walk the fence, then come to my defense. Don't need fair weather kinds of friends around. So watch and pray as they traders kiss betrays, and rest your feet at play on shaky ground. Then look me in the face and least what's left of it. Tell me you still love me just a little bit. Oh, nail me down, break the skin, all enough to the end, but don't leave me hanging down and twisted in the wind. It touched my side, let I be crucified.
Yeah, it's a great song,
It's cool.
regardless of
It's cool.
the lyrics. There's a quote I found online, which I'm assuming it's correct because when you find stuff online, you never know. But Terry Taylor said this about the song. I've heard several comments on the twist that people who have heard that needed it in a certain situation in their life. I mean, there are any number of songs that are like that where people become a real source. The Holy Spirit breathed life into that. I think that like anything, in some ways, it's dead words, but the Holy Spirit, the Bible, it's just words on a page. It's breathing. And I think that God can take these things that are imperfect on so many levels and with his perfect spirit breathe life into them that are meant particularly for someone in a certain situation who maybe needs comfort because of losing a loved one or is in a situation where they've lost a job and they don't know what the future holds for them. So yeah, God really did give me that song. So it's not, I mean, it's obviously crucifixion related because, you know, the twist, what they talk about, you know, it's like he was twisting in the wind. It's like, but don't leave me hanging, dying and dangling, twisting in the wind. Here, touch my side. Let doubt be crucified, nailed with your wounded pride to love's grim altar. Here, taste my flesh, my bloody humanness. I am no phantom guest, no skinless martyr. You know, it's just a powerful song.
That's great. Yeah, no, I dig it, and I like the kind of the build up into the chorus and kind of the artistic way he's sort of putting it, like, you know, dangling there. Yeah, it was good. Good stuff.
And I would say that Daniel Amos, Terry Taylor have drugged me kicking and screaming into being slightly more poetic because, like, like poetry, like I don't get a lot of poetry, and I don't maybe want to get a lot of poetry. Maybe that's my problem. Like, but to me, this is just like a very complex, like, not iambic pentameter necessarily, but it's just a very poetic way of telling that story.
Yeah, I agree. Good stuff. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
My last one. This is one where I went outside of our parameters, and this is the Easter song by Keith Green. I come back. I have several songs I come back to every Easter. A few that are on this list already, and a couple that didn't make the list, but. For this one, it's the Easter song by Keith Green, and it was originally written by, I forget her name, but she was with Second Chapter of Acts.
Annie Herring.
Annie. But this is the version I know, and this is the version I think a lot of people know, and it's just, this is more the Jesus music era, so it's not necessarily rocking, although I think it's very cool musically. It's got a lot of cool elements to it. So we'll just get into it. And here it is. I would like to hear a metal version of this, by the way.
It can happen.
Hear the bells ringing, they're singing that you can be born again. Hear the bells ringing, they're singing, Christ is risen from the dead. The angel upon the tombstone said he has risen just as he said. Quickly now go tell his disciples that Jesus Christ is no longer dead. Joy to the world, he is risen. Hallelujah, he's risen. Hallelujah, he's risen. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
And here it goes. It's about to rock. He's going to rock right here.
I'm ready.
Here.
Yeah.
He just kind of rocks out the rest of the song. But yeah, it's just, I think the lyrics are amazing, and I think the music is amazing. I really would love to hear like a progressive metal. Who's that band? See, now my brain is I'm having a brain fart. Who's the band that does all the Christmas stuff, but they like, it's like rock.
Oh, Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Oh yeah, like Trans-Siberian Orchestra doing this with like a great singer. Maybe Ray Parra singing this. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Anyway, I would love to hear like a real rockin' version of this because it's so orchestral, but you could really kind of do that metal wise. Anyway, I love the energy. I also have a little bit of a nostalgia with it because my mentor, Larry Trammell, who I've talked about, he was an amazing singer and, piano player. And he used to play this song. He used to play some Keith Green. And of course he was kind of raised on that music too, but he, so anyway, so that's just, I love this song.
It's a great song. Like I was telling Britt before we started recording, it's like, I remember back in the radio days, of course we had the Keith Green version we would play around this time of the year. We play like Easter though is kind of as Christians, we celebrate this kind of all year round. So that's why you don't get like a lot of Easter compilations, but, or like, we did an Easter album because technically, if all songs point to Christ, then
right.
A lot of these songs are Easter in focus. But yeah, around this time of the year, we would play a lot of this song from Keith Green. We do the second chapter of Acts version, but then when Glad came out with the a cappella project, we played a lot of that version too, which is really good. So if you're into that sort of thing, check it out. Glad had some good music back in the day, kind of one of those Jesus music bands that got kind of rekindled whenever they started doing a cappella. Everybody started doing a cappella, Take Six, and then everybody had to do a cappella.
It was a big thing for like 3 months.
It was. Take Six, man.
Take Six really rocked. Oh my God, they were so good.
I was down in downtown Atlanta at the Rialto Theater. My son's high school band, the symphonic band, was playing down there last week, a couple weeks ago, and I was looking at the website for the Rialto, and Take Six had just recently been there, or they were coming there or something. I was like, Take Six, they're still touring. Who knew?
And I bet they're still amazing.
Oh my gosh,
I can't imagine them missing a beat anymore. But
they were so good.
Good stuff.
So Easter songs. Do we want to talk about our honorable mentions? We're running kind of late.
Well, we kind of already did.
But
we kind of already did. We did. He came. I mean, we kind of talked about he came. He saw. He conquered the Messiah. I almost put Scarecrow Messiah on here. Scarecrow from Scarecrow Messiah from Bride's album. I was really close. There was a couple, and Bought by Blood by Deliverance almost made it on here. I thought that one would have been good. And yeah, those are kind of the main ones that I've kind of talked about. Some of the other ones that almost made my list.
Yeah. Like I was thinking the Messiah by Bloodgood. He Came, He Saw, He Conquered was on my possibility list. This is later, but like more recent, but Wasp, Golgotha.
Oh, that's a great song, dude. What a great song.
Great song. Doesn't really fit for the podcast just from a timing standpoint, although we did cheat a little bit on other things.
Yeah,
but
we did.
But if you haven't heard, then Wasp, yes, Blackie Lawless from Wasp is returned to Christ, and they're putting out some pretty decent like Christian themed metal now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's good. He died. I had Thief by Third Day. King's Ransom
that's
by
a good
Petra.
one.
It's a little
Thief.
slow.
Yeah, Thief was a good one though. But I mean,
Yeah.
I remember that one. I used to play it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So there's lots of good stuff out there. There's lots of good stuff. But yeah. So Easter, go to church.
Easter. What's real quick? What's a favorite thing you like to do around Easter? Is there any tradition? You guys do like the same things. You guys do a good job in your family about having some traditions around things. But anything for Easter?
We do church. We go to church, and we usually typically we just go to church with the four of us, and then we'll meet up with my wife's family because they live pretty close by, and we still have little kids, so they like to do the Easter egg hunting and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's just pretty typical stuff. We try to see all the people we haven't seen in a while at church, and but yeah, it's just normal, just sort of trying to be reverent about the day. And
yeah. And we also have spring break. If those of you who don't know, Steve and I our wives work together, and we have spring break this week. So my kids will be home for most of the week. And so anyway, so it'll be good. Yeah. For us, the main thing that I think that we've done pretty consistently over the last few years is we try to do a Passover Seder. Seder. And even if we're definitely not strict about the meal. But as far as, I mean, like we try to have the elements of the egg and the bone and the whole thing, but we try to do that stuff. But as far as, having actual lamb and like we don't get strict about stuff, but but this year Passover isn't until the end of April, and that's a whole other geeky conversation we get into. But anyway, so Easter is the end of March, and so Passover isn't for another 2 or 3 weeks. So we won't be doing that this week. But yeah, we'll do church. We'll do lunch with our afternoon. My mom tries to do an Easter egg hunt in her backyard, but the kids are getting older and older, so I don't know. There's really only 1 or 2 that are young enough to really enjoy it anymore. So she's going to do it again, but we'll see how much longer that lasts.
Yeah, we did an early Easter celebration with my in-laws last week, and we were remarking. It used to be there was a whole yard full of kids, but now most of those kids, or a lot of those kids, are in college. My son is about to go off to college, and then my youngest and my nephew, they're on that side. The oldest of my wife's sister's kids is my youngest son's age, but they're, like I said, next Easter, both of them will be old enough to drive a car.
Right.
So I'm thinking that maybe, and then you'll just have 2 of them left. Just my niece and nephew. And it's like, I mean, and we'll continue to do it for them, but it's like, at some point, it's like, if you're 15 years old, maybe you shouldn't be competing against an elementary school student anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to get into that right here. No, so yeah, you guys listening, I'd love to hear what you guys did over Easter. I think it's important to spend time with family, and yes, this is something we celebrate. The cross and the resurrection are eternal things, and we celebrate them every day, every moment. But it's nice to have times to remember specifically and on all that cool stuff. So I would love to. So Absolutely. You were saying like we should let people know about what coming up.
What? about.
I don't know. You said we let people know about something coming up. I thought you were going to talk about another interview that we have coming up. I don't know if you wanted to mention that for people.
We do have another interview coming up, and I will tease it. I will not give it away, but
Okay.
I'll tease it by saying,
All right.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's our first Grammy Award winner that we've interviewed.
Ooh. Okay. All right.
So
All right.
pretty excited about that.
Pretty excited.
Yeah, keep an eye on the YouTube channel, and we'll be uploading some things there along, and just trying to keep that rolling, keep some momentum there, and subscribe, like and subscribe, 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
Smash that bell.
We won't have. Unless you do something. Unless you put the audio to something else. I didn't hit record on the video for this for Zoom, so we won't have the video for this one up, but you can still put
I'll figure something out.
You can do a video, a picture collage of Carmen, No, all right. So no, yes,
Carmen.
Like, subscribe, and celebrate this weekend.
Absolutely. So yeah, so keep an eye out for new things coming. We got, like I said, we got an interview coming up in a couple of weeks we're going to be doing, and all the good things. Thank you for your patronage and for always being there for Britt and I. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Peace out.
Peace out.